Welcome to the second explainer in our series on communication, titled Visual Communication. Right now, at this exact moment, you are actively participating in a massive, ongoing human process. We tend to think of reading as something we only do with books, or articles, or maybe emails. But the truth is, we are constantly reading the entire world around us through what we can call an invisible grammar of sight. Think about it. From the absolute second you wake up and check the icons on your phone, to the symbols and signs you instinctively follow on your morning commute, you are absorbing and interpreting vast amounts of visual data before you've even spoken a single word to anyone. Today we're going to completely unpack how this works, why it works so fast, and why it's absolutely one of the most powerful tools we have for sharing complex meaning across the globe. So, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll be hitting 6 main areas. Number 1, the power of visual communication. Number 2, charts, symbols, and signs. Number 3, images and presentations. Number 4, visuals in education. Number 5, professional and digital media. And finally, number 6, barriers and ethical design. Let's dive right in.
Section 1. The power of visual communication. Let's talk about immediate understanding.
When we talk about verbal communication, we're obviously relying on words and written text. It's linear. But visual communication, that is an entirely different beast. It relies heavily on perception, on sight, and on immediate understanding. It completely bypasses the need for long paragraphs of text and shoots straight into our brain's visual processing centers. Scholar Paul Martin Lester actually put it perfectly. He states that visual communication involves the creation and interpretation of images that carry information, emotion, and cultural meaning. So, the absolute crucial point here is that visuals aren't just pretty pictures. They carry heavy cultural and emotional significance. We aren't just talking about artistic value here, or, just making a document look attractive to a client. We're talking about transferring deep social understanding from one human mind to another through an image. And honestly, this is a process that has fundamentally shaped human society since our ancestors were painting on cave walls.
To really grasp this, just think about the sheer speed of sight. Verbal communication demands time. You have to read it, parse the grammar, and then finally comprehend it. Visual communication, on the other hand, happens through sight, images, and spatial arrangements, and it usually does this in a fraction of a second. Let's do a quick thought experiment. Imagine you're driving down a highway at 70 miles an hour. It's raining. A visual traffic sign instantly crosses all language barriers to warn you of a sharp turn. It does this far, far faster than if you had to try and speed read a long written warning paragraph on a billboard, right? The visual completely simplifies a complex, dangerous situation, and it does it almost instantly. It literally saves time, and in that driving scenario, it keeps you safe.
But to really master this concept, we have to look at the work of scholars Kress and Van Leeuwen. They argue something really fascinating. Visual communication actually has its own strict grammar. Just like the spoken sentences I'm using right now have nouns and verbs, visuals have meaningful patterns in their layout, their color, their framing, and their composition. This means we actually need to study visual design as a serious, structured form of meaning-making. It is literally never random. Where an image is placed on a page, or the specific vibrant shade of the color red used in a warning label, these follow established, almost universal grammatical rules of sight that dictate exactly how our brains will react.
Section 2. Charts, symbols, and signs. Moving into the specific vocabulary of visuals.
Just as you learn vocabulary words to speak a new language, you need a specific vocabulary to grasp how we visually represent complex data, abstract ideas, and societal rules. This is where Charles Sanders Peirce's semiotic theory comes into play, and it's a real game changer. Peirce explains that a symbol doesn't just automatically contain meaning on its own. Meaning actually happens in 3 distinct parts: the sign itself, the object it refers to, and the interpretation made by the observer. Let's do another thought experiment to break this down. Think of a white dove. The image of the bird is the sign. The actual physical bird is the object. But the interpretation, the concept of peace, only exists because our society agrees on it. Or think of a red circle with a diagonal line through it. We instantly interpret that as prohibition, right? Like, don't do this. But only because we learned that specific social convention. Meaning doesn't live in the red circle. It happens in our interpretation of it.
Now, when we take this semiotic theory and apply it to hard data, the rules get incredibly strict. Based on the foundational theories of Edward Tufte and Stephen Few, when you're using charts, like bar charts, line graphs, or pie charts, the ultimate priority must always be accurate interpretation. Period. Visual decoration should be practically non-existent. Tufte actually calls that stuff chart junk. Data visualizations have one job. They must present complex ideas with absolute precision and efficiency. If a chart uses a weirdly distorted scale to look dramatic, or adds totally unnecessary three-dimensional shadows and decorations, it completely fails its primary job. That job is helping people understand the cold, hard truth of the numbers, not distracting them with flashy, useless graphics.
Beyond just data, this visual language also heavily manages our physical everyday spaces. Connecting back to Kress and Van Leeuwen's grammar of sight, we see that public signs actually regulate human behavior through their composition, their framing, and their salience. Salience just means how much something visually stands out. Think about a no-smoking sign or a stop sign. It doesn't just passively offer you information, it communicates strict authority and enforces social rules. Imagine you're looking at a hospital directory. You're panicked, highly stressed, trying to find the emergency room. That directory uses huge text sizes, high color contrast, and highly specific spatial placement to guide you there quickly. These signs aren't just decorations. They are essential, active tools of social coordination.
Section 3. Images and Presentations. Let's explore expressive multimedia.
We're going to transition now from the strict, rigid rules of data and science into the highly expressive world of multimedia, where images shape our emotional understanding of the world. To understand the raw power of images here, we have to look at the scholar Roland Barthes. He explained that every single image carries two very distinct layers of meaning: denotation and connotation. Denotation is the literal meaning. If I show you a picture of a rose, literally it denotes a flower. Pretty simple. But the connotation? That's the cultural, emotional, or symbolic meaning. That exact same picture of a rose can connote romance on Valentine's Day, or it can connote deep sympathy at a funeral. It depends entirely on the context of the event. The crucial takeaway here is that images are never truly neutral. Never. They are deliberately selected, framed, and edited to carry deeper and sometimes manipulative emotional weight.
Which brings us directly to how we combine these visual elements in professional settings. According to Gare Reynolds' famous philosophy on presentation design, an effective presentation has to be four things: simple, clear, visually meaningful, and audience-centered. Look, we have all suffered through death by PowerPoint. You know the feeling, sitting in a stuffy room while a presenter just dryly reads a slide that is absolutely crammed with tiny, unreadable text. Reynolds argues that slides must support the speaker, not replace them. We should be using limited text, highly meaningful charts, and powerful images to engage the audience naturally, rather than overwhelming their cognitive load with completely unnecessary visual noise.
Section 4. Visuals in Education. How visuals completely transform the classroom.
Let's map all of this theory to the real world, starting with how visual communication fundamentally transforms modern education. Educational researcher Richard E. Mayer has done extensive studies on this, and he states, people learn more effectively when words and relevant visuals are combined properly than when words are used alone. Think about a science diagram showing the water cycle, or a complex math graph mapping out an abstract equation. These visuals make incredibly difficult academic concepts instantly accessible to a student. By combining a spoken explanation with a highly relevant, non-distracting visual, a teacher can solidify memory and understanding in a way that purely verbal instruction could literally never achieve. It's like unlocking a cheat code for the human brain.
Section 5. Professional and Digital Media. Taking visuals into high-stakes landscapes.
From the classroom, we step out into the boardroom and into the wild, vast landscape of the internet. And I want you to notice how the purpose of visual tools actively evolves across these different spaces. In education, as we just saw, diagrams and timelines are built specifically to support learning. But in the professional space, organizations rely on complex data dashboards, performance charts, and corporate logos. The purpose shifts entirely. It's now about influencing strategic decisions and building trust with stakeholders. And finally, out in the digital space, the primary tools become memes, infographics, and tiny user interface icons. These are all optimized for lightning-fast sharing and helping us navigate incredibly complex technology. The grammar of sight completely changes, depending entirely on the environment you're in.
Leaning into Lev Manovich's theory, we can clearly see that digital media fundamentally transforms our entire visual culture. On a screen, we aren't just passively looking at a static image on a piece of paper. We are actively interacting with dynamic combinations of text, real-time data, and interactive interfaces. In these digital environments, visual communication happens at lightning speed. A single infographic or a clever digital interface can reach millions of people instantly all around the globe. This massive, unprecedented scale makes digital visual communication incredibly powerful for sharing ideas. But as we are about to see, it also makes it highly, highly risky.
Section 6. Barriers in Ethical Design. What happens when visuals fail or mislead us?
All right, now we have to raise the stakes.
we need to critically look at how visual communication fails us, starting with poor design. Imagine a fire exit sign in a crowded building that is poorly lit or practically hidden by bad architecture. Bad design in this context isn't just ugly, it actually creates real physical danger. Second is cultural misunderstanding, which happens when a symbol simply fails to translate across international borders. And third, perhaps the most insidious of all, visual manipulation. This is when a chart is deliberately designed to exaggerate a financial crisis, or when a news image is cropped super tightly to completely change the viewer's context of a political story.
Let's dive just a bit deeper into those cultural barriers because this is fascinating. What seems like an absolutely universal symbol to you might be entirely offensive or totally confusing to someone else. Take colors, for example. In one culture, the color white might heavily symbolize purity and be used for weddings, while in another culture it is strictly associated with mourning and worn at funerals. Gestures like a simple thumbs up carry the exact same risks depending on what country you're in. That is exactly why designers must meticulously consider their global audience. They have to operate with deep cultural sensitivity before releasing a visual message into the world, because the potential for a massive misunderstanding is always there.
Ultimately, ethical visual communication demands honesty, accuracy, and a fundamental respect for the viewer. Today, we are facing an unprecedented, staggering rise in digital misinformation. We're bombarded with fake infographics, AI-manipulated photographs, and deepfakes designed specifically to exploit our emotions. Because our brains process visuals so quickly, remember the highway sign? We are highly susceptible to being tricked by a deceptive graph or a doctored image before our logical brain can even hit the brakes. Developing strong visual literacy, which is the ability to critically read, analyze, and evaluate the images around us, is truly our best and only defense against this kind of manipulation.
We have covered some incredible ground today, from the semiotics of Charles Peirce to the strict data rules of Edward Tufte. So I want to conclude our journey with a slightly provocative question for you to really reflect on. In a world that is almost entirely shaped by screens, where every icon, chart, and image is actively trying to communicate with you, persuade you, or guide your behavior, how strong is your visual literacy? Are you simply looking at the world, or are you actually reading it?
Thank you so much for joining me today to decode the invisible grammar that surrounds us every single day. If you found this breakdown helpful and you want to continue mastering the complex mechanics of communication with us, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. We have plenty more deep dives coming up, so make sure you hit that button, and I will see you in the next explainer.